My name is Brian Watkins, and this is my video tutorial for Unit 6 of the Accounting 232B course. In this tutorial, I will show you how to build a retirement investment calculator, and along the way we're going to learn how to use simple lookup functions to obtain data from tables that you create. And this is a very powerful tool that you can use later on to, for example, you could look based on somebody's name and then pull information out of a table. So let's create it. We're going to give it, we're going to save it first. Always save your document right at the beginning. Unit 6. We can save it as Excel because we're all up to date on Excel 2010. Yes, I'm going to replace it. We start by taking, because this is going to be a large table, in order to make it uniform, click in the column heading, drag it all the way out to column L. And by doing this and selecting all these columns, we can set the column width by right-clicking, going to column width. Right now it's 8.43, that's the default. Let's set it for 13.5. I think that's a good width for this project. It sets everything exactly the same. So obviously we can do our title section now. Remember, Control U and Control B set bold and underline, and you don't have to use the mouse. You will have a test at some point on your ability to navigate through Excel without a mouse. Calculator, prepared by. Available retirement funds using assumptions regarding income, salary, contributions, and the rate of expected growth in the investment account. Okay, that's probably simple enough. Let's take it. This procedure should be very familiar now. Okay, in our data section, we're going to go all the way out to L for this one. We have a lot to do with this calculator. Now, the variables that we're going to use, we'll have today's date, we'll have the current age of our client, retirement age, annual salary, anticipated salary increases, we'll have annual employee contribution, which is the amount that you contribute from your salary to your retirement account, and the annual employer contribution. The purpose of this spreadsheet is to show that it really pays off in the long run to take as much of the employer contribution as may be available to any employee. Expected return rate. This is basically what your investment account is going to be earning, and then an original investment balance, because many of your clients will bring their investments over. Alright, today's date. Well, let's just go through and name everything before we start doing anything else. So we'll go to our formulas and we'll name our cells. And you can see that I've got the cursor in the column that is directly to the right of my names, so the computer can pull the names right in. Okay, and then once I name them, I select Control X to cut, Control V to paste, and today's date, let me show you a function here. It's called today. And I don't need to put anything in there. I just put the parentheses, and when I hit enter, it gives you the date. You don't have to do anything else. And whenever this spreadsheet will open, that will always be today's date. Current age, let's put 30. Let's retire at 72. Annual salary, 60,000. Anticipated salary increases. Right now at age 30, we're making 60 grand a year. Let's say that we expect it to go up 4% a year. Our contribution, we'll do 5%. The employer contribution we're going to pull from a table. The expected return rate, let's just say 9%, and let's say we started with 30,000. So let's do our formatting before we move on. We'll center everything. Comma. Let's put these commas, and we have, these are percentages, and we'll give them 2 decimal places just so that, whoops, percentage, 2 decimal places, just in case we want to change that. And now for the employer contribution. Employers will contribute a certain amount in many circumstances to the employee's retirement, independent of whatever salary. So if you're making 60,000 a year, but you contribute 5% of your salary, your employer may pay an additional amount, not to you, but to a retirement account. And so that's a fringe benefit that's worth looking for and keeping. So let's do the table real quick, and let's show what the employer is willing to do in our case. So let's take 5 row by 2 column. We'll format them already as a percent style, and that way we can fill it all right up. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that would be the employee contribution, and the employer, let's just say they do 1, 2, 3, and then they don't 3.75 and 4.5. So we'll increase our decimals on these. Let's center them, and we'll center these. And these two up here, we're going to merge them, merge and center, so that we can say contribution percentage. Okay, and these are all user entered variables, so we'll give that a green. These are user entered. These are user entered. And let me show you something new. We can highlight our table, and we can give the table its own name. And we're going to call this the, let's see, the retirement, and we'll use an underline, contribution table. Retirement contribution table. And you'll see how it's defined here as sheet 1, G11 through H15, and we're good to go. And so now if I go to name manager, I can see in there that my table, where did it go? It's right here, retirement contribution table. That'll come in handy with the next function that we use. So now we've got to figure out what the employer contribution is. In order to find out the employer's contribution, we've constructed this table. The purpose of the table is to simplify what would otherwise be a whole bunch of if statements. You know, is it greater than 1? Is it greater than 2? Is it greater than 3? And so in order to do that, we construct our data table. We're going to use a lookup function. And because our table is oriented vertically, we'll use a vertical lookup, or a VLOOKUP. If, for example, my 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were along the top, then I would use a horizontal, or an HLOOKUP table. But here, we're looking for a value in the leftmost column, And the table has to be sorted in ascending order. That means it has to get larger as you go down the column. The first thing you do for any VLOOKUP is you have a value. This variable is used to compare it against the left-hand column of your table. So our lookup value in this problem is going to be the 5% employee contribution. And then we're going to use our retirement contribution table, which we already defined. Our column index is going to be the second column because that's where the employer contribution is found. And then finally, it's going to prompt us. We have the choice of using either a true or a false. And if it's a true, then this will be an approximate match. If it will look for the closest match to the data that we feed it for the lookup value. Now you can see false comes in handy when you want to look up by someone's name, for example, or if you have a lot of product numbers and you want to have product number in one column and a product description in another. In those situations, you'd want an exact match. But with the contribution percentage, we want an approximate match because we want any number to come up with a result. So we set it to true, we close the function, and it returns 4.5. That's because we started with the value of 5, it went down to the table to 5, and then it went across to 4.5. And that's how it returned that 4.5. Now if I change this, let's say it's 1.5, and that's a figure that's going to be in the middle of 1 and 2. You'll see it returned a 1. Because we didn't quite get up to 2%, we can't take advantage of the 2% matching, but at the same time there's nothing to prevent us from contributing something more than 1%. So that 1.5 did an approximate match, and it stuck with the lower figure. If it got over 2, if it gets to 2, now the program returns the 2. And likewise, I could change that from 3, it'll return a 3, 4 will return 3.75, and of course the 5, which returns what we want, which is 4.5. So that is our data section, but we're going to do something a little different on this project. Because we have so many data variables, we're going to set up some logic so that our spreadsheet will not provide results unless we're sure that our data is complete. Because if we're leaving out a percentage, we could be giving our client bad information. So we're going to create a condition that's going to be true or false. And that condition is going to be called is data complete. So let's just put it right here. Is data complete? Question mark. And then we'll put let's see here, we'll put it over here and we'll put a true or a false. But how are we going to get it to return true or false? We're going to use an if statement. And this is going to be a rather complicated if statement. So bear with me, watch closely as we construct this if statement. We want to find out if every one of our variables has been provided by our user. So let's start if. Now what we want to do is we want some test that is either true or false. And in order to get a true or false out of this, the easiest way to do it is to say if we have got any blanks at all in our list of data, if any one of these from 30 all the way down is blank, then we want our data to be incomplete. And there's a function called OR. And OR is a logical function that looks for any condition that's true. If OR is triggered, then it becomes true. And the tricky part of this if statement is that what we're saying is if OR comes up, then we want it false. So essentially, if it's false, then it's true. But if OR triggers as true, then our data is not complete and it's false. Now that's a lot to take, so let's just build the formula and then we'll walk through it. So we're going to do an OR, and we're going to open parenthesis, and then we're going to say current age equal to blank, comma, and we're going to go through each one of them, and we're going to ask, how about retirement age? Is retirement age equal to blank, comma, how about annual salary? Annual salary equal to blank, comma, anticipated salary increases, is that equal to a blank, comma, and what's the next one? Annual employee contribution, is that equal to a blank, comma. Next one would be the annual employer contribution. Is that equal to a blank? Or expected return rate? Is that equal to a blank? Or the original investment balance? Okay, now we can close our OR statement. We have our test. The OR function will return a true if any one of those conditions is true. That means if any of the variables in that colored box are missing, then the OR statement becomes true. If the OR statement is true, that means that we have a false condition. Okay, so I know that's a little bit much here. If OR is true, then we want to say false. But if OR is false, meaning that everything is full up and that's what we actually want to see, then we're going to say true. So we'll close it. Now I've typed the words false and true. False and true are themselves Excel functions. So you can type them and the program will know exactly what you mean. I hit enter. Is data complete? Yes, it is. It's true. Why is it true? It's true because my OR was false. Each one of these colored boxes does not have a blank in it. So that's a little bit backwards, but it's good logic. Escape out there, and it works. So now we know that if I leave out, for example, the age, as soon as I hit return, that better go false. And it does. And the reason it went false is because now my OR came along and it said, is current age equal to blank? Yes, it is. So now the OR was true, and my if statement says, if I've got it true, let's bring it down here. If that's true, go to the end, then I want you to return false. Look right here. Test, value if true is after the first comma and before the second, and the value if false is the second one. Do not be confused. Practice this. So now when I put my current age back as 30, my data is complete. True. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do our summary answer section. Let's bring this across. Let's make it, I don't know, purple? Yeah. Make it blue. There's our summary answer section. Now, our summary answer section, what we want to start with is our beginning investment, and then we're going to have contributions from our employee, our employer, and we're going to have a total of the contributions, and then we're going to have earnings over a lifetime. And at the end, we'll have a balance at retirement. So let's take and center all of these. Alright, and let's go through our columns. Need to be bold and underline. Let's bold everything. And we're going to use that trick again that we used up here with contribution percent. We're going to take all of those columns. Actually, no, we're not going to take all of them. We're going to take these three and we're going to merge them. And we're going to say Let's make sure and count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see here. I have to put a quote. Quote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Contributions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Some of you may be able to eyeball this. I typically can't. So I'm just doing that. It will automatically center. Okay, so I have a way of saying that that way I don't have to repeat employee contribution, employer contributions, etc. Alright. It's going to be awfully hard to fill in our answers when we haven't calculated them yet. So let's just come down. We're going to have a check figure here, and we're going to have a check figure for total and retirement, so we can come down to the next line and do our detailed answer section. Okay, so let's do let's make this one match detailed answer section. And we're going to do a little bit of a different format here because, as you know, when we do tables, we can format them with the banded rows, and I want to do that on this table. So that means I want a very dark color here. I'm going to pick, let's just do a, sorry, while I pick my red there. And since I can't read what that says, I'm going to take this text and I'm going to change it to white. So now I have my detailed answer section, and I'm going to hopefully use the same colors in my table. Alright, follow along here because this is quite a table. We're going to start with the year. We're going to have the age, the salary, the beginning balance, the year-to-date earnings, the year-to-date contributions. Let's do our end balance. We're going to have accumulated earnings, accumulated contributions, another ending balance. We're going to do it two ways so we can reconcile, and a check figure. We'll bold and underline those for now, but that'll probably change when we format as a table. But let's just do it. Good practice. We'll center it. Okay, now, as you've recalled from prior projects, if we can get the year right, if we can get the formula in the year, then we can hang everything on top of that. And we're going to use the if statement. And before I use that, let me go up here. I'm going to show another thing. We've defined the table, but now I'm going to define this cell with a name. And I'm going to say, is data complete? That cell is either going to be true or false. And so now, anytime I need to test whether my data is complete, all I have to do is check this variable that I've just named, is data complete. Go up to my formulas, we'll come down here, and you'll see it right here. Is data complete is a defined name. Right now the value is true. So let's use our test. Let's do if is data complete, and if that's true, I want a 0 there. If it's not true, I want a blank. There's my 0. Let's do that again. Now I say if is data complete. If it's true, I want B29 plus 1. If it's false, I want a blank. Now I've got my 1, and it looks like I have some formatting already going on. Okay, so if I take this formula and I copy it down, Control V. Okay, now let's go down to, say, 60 57, 58, 59, 60. I want 60 years in my table. So I'm going to do that. And Control V, it should still be in the clipboard. It's not. Okay, so I'll do Control Copy, Control V, Paste. Okay, so now I have clean numbers all the way down to 60. And you'll remember why that makes it easier, because now what I can do is I can just say if B30 equals a blank, then stay blank. Otherwise, what I want to see there is my current age, and I'm going to add to my current age whatever the prior year is. So current age plus 0. And I'll hit enter. And so that brings me down to my current age in year 1. And if I take it to the bottom, it will count to 89. And I suspect that I will be retired by the age of 89. So let's center those. That's our age. Now salary is going to be the same kind of thing. We're going to just we're going to have to start by pulling down our salary. So we do if, and you'll recall that we'll just check if that's equal to a blank, then stay blank. Otherwise, give us our annual salary. 60,000. Oh, good. Okay, so we'll do that. Now our next one's going to be slightly different. If B31 is blank, then leave it blank. But if not, you'll recall that we're building in the ability to increase this number. And those of you who have just been through the rather difficult exam on that ordinary annuity will remember exactly how to do this. What we're going to do is we're going to take the salary from the prior year and we're going to multiply it times 1 plus our anticipated salary increase. And what that does is that will bump our salary up by 4%, and that's where you get the power of Excel, because then you can build these assumptions in. And I copy that all the way down. And what that means is if I were to stay working until I was 89 years old with a 4% raise every year, I'm making $606,000 a year by the time I retire. That's serious money. Now, in order to get our balances right, we're going to have to start by bringing down a year 0 balance. So we're going to go to our end balance here, and because we're in year 0, and we've already, again, year 0 knows whether data is complete. So all we have to do is ask ourselves, is B29 blank? If so, stay blank. Otherwise, we want the original investment balance. So let's go to our formulas, original investment balance. Okay, and we're going to put that up there in the end balance. And we'll give that our format. So now that that's in the end balance, we can go if our year is blank, stay blank. Otherwise, pull down my ending balance. And we'll start this column like that. There we go. Okay, so that gives us the first balance. And then you'll recall that each balance before the end balance will become the beginning balance of the next period. So we can just copy that down. It'll go blank. Next, we look at our year-to-date earnings. We do our if the year is blank, then we would keep it blank. But otherwise, we calculate our earnings based only on our interest. This isn't anything that's coming from our salary or anything like that. This is just our expected return rate on our investment. So we take our investment and we multiply it times our expected return rate. And that will tell us how much money we made just on the account where we're keeping our retirement accumulated. 2,700. Good. Okay. And we'll copy that down. Our year-to-date contribution is another matter because our contributions have two different percentages. So what we're going to do, again, we look for whether it's blank. If it is, stay blank. But if it's true, we're going to take our salary, and our salary is found right here, and we're going to multiply it times not only the employee contribution, but also the contribution that I obtain from my employer. And let's close that. Okay, so you can see that we're taking D30, which is the salary, and it's given us a nice green box here. And then we're going to multiply times the annual employee contribution plus the employer contribution, and that will give us the year-to-date. I must have left off a parenthesis, but it corrected it for me. That looks a little bit off. Let me see. No, that looks right. We can check the math later, but I think that's right. That would be 9.5% times 60,000. Yes, that's right. All right, let's copy that down. Okay, and since that's contributed straight on salary, we're good. And so our ending balance is going to be nothing more than a sum. So first we check and we see if our year is blank. If it is, we stay blank. Otherwise, we do a sum. And we sum everything from E to G. So let's do E to G. Because obviously, that salary is going to pay for kids going to college and food and living expenses. It'd be really nice if you could put the whole $60,000 in your retirement account, but most of us can't. So you're going to add the beginning balance, which is your investment balance, with your year-to-date earnings, which is the interest on your investment, and your year-to-date contribution, which is that portion of the salary that you were able to save. And that gets us to 38.4. We'll copy that down, and that should fill in our table. Look at that money. See, by the time you're 89, you got $24 million in the bank. Hopefully inflation doesn't kick in, and that's still real money. So let's move this over now, and let's look at this. What we're going to do with the accumulated columns is we're going to, instead of, in this column we just say year to date, but in this column we're going to run a total starting with our first earnings. So let's do this. We'll do if, I think it was B29 is blank, then stay blank. Otherwise, we want to do the let's see, the ending balance from the year before plus the, let's see, the year-to-date earnings. There we go. So we want to take whatever we had from the prior period, and we're going to add to it what we made that period. And this creates an accumulation that gets greater and greater every year and allows you to make determinations. For example, in year 10, if I retire at age 39, I go along this table and I will have accumulated 73,717 in earnings. That's why we do that. Contribution is kind of a similar situation. So let's just do that. If B29 is blank, that's B29 remembers our number, our year, is blank, then leave it blank. Otherwise, we want to go and we want to take the prior contribution and we want to add to it the year-to-date contribution. And what will happen here is now we can see how much we have contributed to our retirement at the end of each year. We can see the total. So at the end of the first year it was $5,700. Copy it down and you can see that total. And if you've been paying attention, those totals will come in handy up here, whoops, in our answer section. Okay, that's how we're going to fill in this column right here. but let's finish. So our end balance is going to be another sum function. So we'll just take if B29 is blank, keep it blank. Otherwise, what we're going to do here is we're going to start with that, we'll have to start with a 0 line. So we'll go up here and we'll start K29, but we're going to freeze that. We're going to do a, stop that, I hit the wrong one, F4. We want that to be always the same. Okay, and we're going to take that ending balance, which is going to be our 0 balance of 30, and we're going to add to that our accumulated amounts. Okay, we're going to add the contributions, and we're going to add the earnings. And that should do it. So their ending balance. Problem was I left off the first one. So we'll have to do if B29 equals blank, then hit a blank. Otherwise, in this one we just want to see our original investment balance, which we'll get original investment balance. Okay. And so now it looks like we're good to go. Come down. So we're looking for B29. Uh-oh. B29. I've been using B29 here. We got to fix that. We want to keep it on the row. So B30. B30. And we'll copy those down. It shouldn't change anything. And this should be B30. Okay, so these two are 29. And then all of these on this row should be 30. B30, B30. Good. Okay, that checks out. Don't want to get into trouble when you're doing something this big. Now my check figure is simply going to be the ending balance in one column less the ending balance in the other, because each of these is being calculated should be the same amount. So if B30 equals blank, then keep it blank. Otherwise, want to check my ending balance calculated on the year-to-date basis minus my ending balance calculated with the accumulation basis. Now, what did I do again? I left off a paragraph. Okay, 0, and let's make that, copy it down. You'll see the zeros pop up. That happens when you have a fraction of a penny because of rounding errors. So that's essentially our table. I noticed that I did not put my box around there. I don't want to lose formatting points. Okay, so there's the table. And understand what's going on here. These accumulations, okay, are basically taking account of the prior month's totals as they go down, whereas these columns are just giving you the amounts you earn in those years. So these are totals, but these are years to date. Understand the difference between the two. Okay, now we're going to go up and we're going to fill in our summary answer section. Now, because we have no dates to look at here, we're just going to use our old is data complete test. Okay, if our data is complete, then my beginning investment is simply my original investment balance. If it's not complete, I want that to stay blank. 30,000. Good. Now, my employee contributions are going to be essentially taken as a percentage that is less than the two combined. I just want the employee. Okay, I don't want the total. And so in order to do that, I have to figure out what my total amount is first, because I'm going to take the total contribution and then I'm going to break it up into how much came from me and how much came from my employer. In order to find the total, I have to go to my table and figure out how much total contribution I had. And I have listed a retirement age of 72. So we're going to come in here and we're going to use a VLOOKUP on our table. But before I do the VLOOKUP on the table, I want you to be very careful. This is the #1 source of frustration on this test. We are going to look up the retirement age. See that 72? We're going to go down in this table to line that corresponds to age 72, and here are the answers that we want. In order to do that, we have to make sure that our lookup is looking at the first column. You may be tempted to define this table by using the year, but if you do that, then your 72 will fall right to the bottom because it will be an approximate match and you will just pick up these huge numbers. So that's a check to you. If you see huge numbers, ask yourself if those numbers don't match the bottom here. Okay? So let's define our table. We want the first column in our table to be the retirement age, and then we just go all the way across. Okay? There's our table. Let's go into our formulas. Let's name it, and we're going to call this our retirement detail table. Oh gosh, what did I do? I hit something. Let's see if it remembered it. Retirement detail, wonderful. Okay, let's edit retirement detail table. Okay, so now I have a table and I can use VLOOKUP to get my total contributions. So I'm going to go, and before I do anything else, I'm going to check is data complete, because I want this to be blank if it's not complete. If data is complete, then I'm going to use a VLOOKUP, and my lookup value is going to be my retirement age, and my table array is going to be my retirement detail table. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to find which column has the information I am looking for. So which column has the total contributions in it? The total contributions will always be right here in the accumulated contribution, which is, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's in 8. There you go. And for this one, I want the exact match. I don't want there to be any chance of looking up the wrong number. So I want to match right to the age. That should return my total contributions. I have a problem putting in the right number of parentheses. It'll add it for me. There we go. So I format that, and that tells me that I had $627,070 in accumulated contributions by my 72nd year. So let's just check that. 627,07058. That's correct. Good. Now you'll see that our table keeps track of contributions every year. At age 30 I had 5,700. At age 31 I had 11,628. What it doesn't do is tell me how much of those contributions came from the employee or the employer. In order to do that, you have to break this number into its component parts. So let's start with the employee. If is data complete, if it's true, what we're going to do is multiply our number from the total, which is E22. I really don't like it when we don't name those. So let's do this. Let's go to total, and we're going to give it a name. We're going to call it total contributions. Okay, now let's go back. Equals if is data complete. Spell it right always helps. The value, if true, is going to be total contributions times, now here's some tricky math for you. I want just the employee contribution, okay, but I want the percentage of both. So I'm going to take the 5 now plus the 450. And so what that does is that creates a fraction. And that fraction has 9.5 at the bottom, but has the employee contribution as the numerator, 5 over 9.5. So when I multiply that fraction times my total, let's make sure I get, otherwise I want a blank. Let's see if it accepts. I did it right, good. So what I've done is now I've multiplied this total by just the 5% over the 9.5. And I'm going to do the same thing for the employer. Okay, in fact, just to save time, I could probably copy that right over, but instead of using annual employee contribution as my numerator, I want employer contribution as my numerator. Now I hit yes, and I have that amount. And those two should add up to an amount that's equal to this total. So let's do a check figure. We'll do is data complete, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to subtract the sum of these two contributions, and if that's the case, otherwise if a data is not complete I want a blank. And my check figure is 0. Good. So I did it right. Understand what we're doing there. We took the total from our table and then we multiplied this number times the percentage that applies to the employee and then the percentage that applies to the employer. And remember, I can't just multiply times the 5%. What I have to do is I have to create a numerator, or sorry, a denominator in the fraction that has the full, the annual employee plus the employer contribution. That way I'm taking the right portion of that. So I'm afraid you're just going to have to double check that math and memorize that to get that right if you don't understand exactly what's happening. Now my total earnings, well, I've already calculated those two. So I do if is data complete. If it is, then I'm going to do another VLOOKUP. And of course I'm going to use my retirement age as my key. And this time, well, I'm going to use the same table. It's my detail table. And the column I want is the column that has my total earnings in it. So let's just take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 has accumulated earnings. And let's do an exact match. So that will return my earnings. And if data is not complete, then I want a blank. Okay. And there are my earnings. Let's format those. It says I had 4.5 million by the time I retire at 72. So let's go down here to 72. And I'll be, there's $4.5 million. Power of interest. Okay. And so now my balance at retirement, if is data complete, then I want to put in just a sum, but not a sum of everything. I'm going to want to be a little more careful with this. So I'm going to put, let's see, B22, which is my original investment, or sorry, B23, which is my original investment, plus E23, which is my total contributions plus F23, which is my total earnings. All of those are in the bank account. If it's not complete, I want a blank. There we go. And that's it. So that's my balance at retirement. So how do I check that one? What I would do for that is basically go and do another VLOOKUP and look up the end balance, which would be column 9. I think if I did it right. So let's go back down and look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I'm going to use my end balance calculated a different way. So let's just do this. If is data complete? If so, do a VLOOKUP. And I want my VLOOKUP to have my retirement age. I want it to come from my detail table. And I want it to go to column 9. And let's do an exact match. And then I want to subtract from that this amount here. And if data is not complete, give me a blank. And again, it checks out. So it looks like my check figures are good. That is essentially a completed table. Okay. It goes for 60. You're required to go down to 60. And I'm going to provide an extra credit on this one. If you want to be industrious and show me how good you are at Excel, then what you can do is figure out a way to have your table detect when it's on its last line, which would be the retirement age, and blank everything past the retirement age. Okay, you can do that. I'll give you extra credit. I think you can figure it out on your own quite easily, but I don't want to put pressure on those who might be struggling just to get this done. So that will be extra credit. Right now, let's take a look and let's see if our data complete really does blank our table. All that work with those if statements. Let's say I forgot my retirement age. Rather than suffer from VLOOKUP errors, we just want the whole thing to go blank. And it looks like everything happened except there's a false here. So what did I forget? Oh, I forgot to tell it what to do. So what I do is I come and I put a comma, whoops, comma, blank. So what it was telling me was, hey guy, it's false, but you didn't tell me what to do, so I'm just going to put false there. But I've fixed that, so now that disappears, and everything is clean. I don't see anything in my spreadsheet unless I give it a retirement age. So let's check. Let's retire at age 31. And we'll go down here and we'll double check and we'll say beginning investment, that's correct. My salary went up, good. And it looks like my total contributions, 11,000, those match. And my earnings, those match. And my total balance at retirement, that matches. So I'm good to go. Everything's checked out. And you've now done something that you can write home about and show your parents that they're getting their tuition dollars from you. So if you have any questions about this, please contact me in my office. Do practice this. This is a large and complicated table, and it will reward you if you know how to do it right. But if you don't, this is going to be a very difficult test for you to get past. But again, if you just watch, I will tell you again, the #1 problem that we have is on the lookup on this. So let's go back up here, and it puts that purple line around the whole detail table. And if that purple line came out here to year, then your key, which is the retirement age, would get lost in this column. It would never find a 72. So just remember that when you go in and you define your table for the lookup, your detail table, that you make sure your age is the first column. You do that, everything's going to work fine. Double check your math. I don't think we did anything really new. The contributions here can be tricky for some people, but when you look at the math, I think you'll understand it's pretty basic. So get to practicing, and I'm counting on you to do very well on this test.